and we'll go from there. So I'll turn it over first. Now, Owen's going to do a little bit of talking about screencasting. Owen?
Yeah, great. Thanks. Hi, everybody. Again, my name's Owen, and I work downstairs for e-learning, and I'm an instructional designer. And screencasting is not my primary area of expertise. There are other people on the design team who are better at screencasting. But the one take-home message I want to make sure you get today is, if you're interested in doing screencasting, there can be a lot to it. It's absolutely something you can do on your own. But if you're at all hesitant, you'd like to do it, but you don't quite know what to do, come down, give us a call, stop in one of our open labs, hook up with one of the designers down there, and we can help you create first-rate, highly polished screencasts that'll look great in your course. So what is screencasting? Anybody have any preconceptions or experience, or anybody try it? Yes, James.
I just envision a PowerPoint presentation with a voiceover.
Okay, that's a real common use of screencasting. It's just an easy way. The basic problem is with online learning or any sort of materials you're developing for someone is, how do you express yourself paired with some sort of visual content at a distance or outside the classroom, right? We take that for granted. In a classroom situation, you can draw on the whiteboard, you can talk to you, you can explain yourself, here's this stuff. As soon as you try and send someone away to do that activity, it's really hard to write out verbatim, long, laborious instructions without at the same time being able to see the content. So screencasting allows you to pair audio content with video content. And those videos can be just static PowerPoint slides, or it can be more animated content. Maybe you're taking them through instructions on how to do something using a tool, using a software package, any example like that. And I can show you a couple of examples. So the screencasting presents, it's been around for ever since you could pair video with other content and deliver it over the internet. Screencasting is a natural medium. Record your desktop and have students engage with that remotely. So tell me a little bit about yourselves and where you're at and where you're coming from in terms of your courses. We'll start here.
Yeah, my name is Jeremy. I'm in the Department of Political Science.
Okay.
So this year was the first year I've taught an online course.
Okay.
So it was very, admittedly, basic. So I'm just trying to add some skills that I'm teaching another online course next September. So I actually just found out about these Thursdays, so I'll probably be here
Great.
On a regular basis.
Great.
I'm Kathy Donor. I teach American Sign Language.
Okay.
And I don't know if this will apply or not, but
We'll find out.
yeah.
I'm DJ Eldridge. I work at the health center, but I also am adjunct and I teach a couple online courses.
Okay, what subject areas?
Human diseases,
Right.
which sounds like a ridiculously complex thing to have a 3-credit course, but and medical law and ethics.
Okay.
Elaine, I'm an assistant professor of anthropology. So I'm really interested in learning some new techniques, possibly for developing some courses online, both in cultural anthropology and medical anthropology. So as well as using something like maybe screencasting or podcasting for courses that have students that are in rural areas who are either calling in or video conferencing in with a class that I'm teaching in person on campus. So I'd really like to expand the tools, and I think part of it is wanting to flip some of the classroom, but not all of it.
Okay.
I like the in-person aspect. I like the visual of being able to really interact during not just activities and assignments, but also lectures. I need that sort of immediate response feedback to sort of guide where I'd like to go, and also just to build relationship with students, which I think is so much, for me at least pedagogically, so important to teaching and learning. But so I think these would be really cool to use in intro classes, freshman level classes, as well as advanced classes.
Okay, anybody use the term flip classroom or flipping the content? Anybody not familiar with that? It just basically means normally the activities you would do in a face-to-face setting, and then send students off outside the classroom to do traditionally solo activities like reading or things they would do on their own. If you can record some of that or capture some of that activity that would occur in the face-to-face classroom and send it home with students, you're flipping that content out. So when their students are in class, you have more time to do the things that face-to-face activity allows you. So face-to-face discussion, debate, workshop, whatever those activities are. It's a way to sort of make that face-to-face time more valuable, take advantage of. And screencasting is one traditional way where people do find some time in their school year to say, okay, well, rather than waste an entire hour showing students how to log into the Blackboard site or use some tool that I want them to use a software tool, I'll just create a 5-minute tutorial video on how to do that, and I'll assign it before they come to class. They'll all be up to speed, and if anybody misses that class or doesn't get it, that video is there, they can get at it later. So that's kind of that's where you can either flip the content out or just use simple directions to take advantage of that. Danny?
I am Danny Shepard. I'm in the psychology department. I am teaching my first online class this semester, but in general, I'm just very interested in creating more of an instructor presence in my instructions and tutorials. So I tend to be monotonously detail oriented, and the instructions that I provide students are clear, but they're lengthy, they're wordy, they have to read them, and many times they miss things. And I think providing more of an instructor presence would be helpful and give me more of an instructor presence and relationship like Elaine was talking about. So that's where I am.
Okay.
With that.
Anybody else want to say hello? No? It's fine. We have some auteurs in the audience.
I'm Martin. I work in OIT, work with Gary and Lee. And I'm actually TAing a fencing class this semester. So
Oh, cool.
we don't have any online presence for that course.
Well, what Danny was talking about trying to get her instructor presence in the course, and sometimes the syllabus can be this really long, onerous document, and that's an easy screencast to do if you're lacking students, really kind of just even perusing the thing. You can create a 3 or 4 minute video where you can just kind of scroll through the syllabus and say, pay attention to this, make note of this, here's the schedule. 2-minute screencast with the syllabus. That's an easy, low-hanging fruit. You can embed that, save it up to YouTube and embed it into Blackboard or wherever your course platform is. So, screencasting. Hi. Okay. And what do you teach?
I teach anthropology.
Anthropology. Okay, I knew that. I remember that now. Yeah. Okay. So welcome. We're just getting started. So the thing about screencasting is there's a fair amount to it. You guys just want to say hello and the subject you're teaching? We're just doing finishing introductions.
Me?
Yes.
Victor, singer, teaching math.
Math?
Natalia Zinger, health courses organizer, manager.
Okay, welcome. So the thing about screencasting is the different components of it can be a little bit hinky, as we say, because you're capturing audio, you're capturing video, and then you have to store that someplace, and that place has to be easily accessible by students. So at each one of those steps, there's some possibilities for things to go wrong. Luckily, with the screencasting tools that are out in the past couple of years, they really made some of those steps much more easy to overcome. So in a little bit, I'm going to demonstrate just a really simple, free screencasting tool. Again, if you want to get serious about screencasting, there are professional tools. They cost anywhere from $25 to $100, depending on what you're trying to do. But if you're going to say make an entire course and you want to screencast all your lectures, it's worth buying a professional tool to do it with and really getting a workflow down. Work with an instructional designer to get that polished. The other thing is audio. Most laptops have pretty good mics, but if you really are going to do a lot of screencasts, maybe not something more than just a syllabus walkthrough or more than just a single lesson in a semester, if you're going to do 14 or 40 screencasts, invest in a good mic. This is a good one. We have some downstairs we can loan you. little meteor mics, excellent quality sound, USB mics. And we have pretty nice webcams too. We can loan you if you want to have a screencast paired with your video. So bottom line is, if you want to get serious, come see us. We can help. But today we're just going to talk about what it is, so you can brainstorm a little bit, maybe thinking about how you might use it, how it might be beneficial to you. And I just wanted to start. I want to point out a couple of things. The main. So I work downstairs. I work for e-learning, and we have sort of a I Teach You. It's called. It's a website full of resources for faculty on some of these kinds of topics. And there's one in particular. So if you go to online training, grow skills, these categories might be somewhat arbitrary to you, but you can always just do a Google search for it. I Teach You, and then the subject you're interested in. But if you go to grow skills, this is kind of the technical area of I Teach You. And down here a little bit, we have audio and podcasting, which Gary's going to be talking about in a minute. We have some resources there for you, but I'm going to keep going down. Screencasting. And in here, we have, basic review of why you would do this, some tips for it. As you might expect, there's tons of content out there on YouTube that you can find, like top 5 tips for good screencasting. The big thing is write a script for yourself. You think you can just pull it off or wing it as you go through it. You'll do much better with a script. And there are times when doing it without a script is fine if you just want to do a quick one for syllabus or something like that. But generally, write a script. Use a tool for good audio. Audio makes a difference for a screencast. It makes a difference for any recording using a decent audio. And then we'll give you a couple of sample applications here that you can use. There's Jing, Screencast-O-Matic. There's a few different platforms to choose from. And then some examples. We're going to take a look at these. In fact, why don't we pop into one right now? And I don't think, since we're also broadcasting live, I don't think that this audio is going to work, but that's fine. I can just sort of tell you what's happening here. I'm going to make it large. So this is an instructor. It's actually an instructional designer, and they're instructing faculty how to incorporate text content into their Blackboard shell. So it's how to use McGraw-Hill content. And the instructional designer is narrating over it, and you'll see the cursor is moving around. It's got a little highlight yellow thing so students can easily see it, or your audience. And she's talking as she's doing things. So this is animated. It's literally recording right off her screen as she's doing things. That's what we mean by screencast. It's literally broadcasting off the screen or recording for later date. So I want to show you now. Let's see if I can get out of this. Oh, something happened. Not sure. Now we're back. Okay. Maybe. I think we're back again, maybe.
So does it matter what size screen you're
Yes.
taking?
Yes and no. Again, it depends on what you want to do. If you want to show something with very high detail, these laptops, the new Macs, have extremely high resolution screens, and it will record at very high resolution. When you save that up to YouTube, you're probably not going to capture or want all of that resolution unless you're doing something very, very refined. So you kind of want to be just thoughtful about, what am I showing here? What do they need to see? What do I want to record?
But you could just record your laptop screen.
Yep, you can. Yeah, it doesn't. In terms of the actual physical dimensions, that doesn't matter. It's all about resolution.
Okay.
It's about resolution. So not only are we watching videos about screencasting, we're also broadcasting this presentation about screencasting to anybody who's outside the room watching. So you get this layers of, and sometimes something's gonna fall down and the whole stack of cards comes apart. So.
Is it connected just with specific people, or
You're talking about this
right
broadcast?
now? Yeah.
It's a web link, so anybody who wants to join the broadcast could.
Oh, okay.
Okay. This would be perfect timing for the monitor to go toast, which is what it looks like it just did.
Looking, I could try and plug in off this and go VGA 2, but we'll lose probably lost the broadcast problem.
Try it and see. I don't know what
It's VGA 2.
why it's decided to disappear, but it did.
It's gonna do something. I was thinking about it. There we go. All right. So I'll just keep talking, Gary.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So something I do well. So this is the screencast we were just watching, as it turns out. And for instance, you might do something if you teach a particular tool in the classroom, like this is SPSS, it's kind of a sophisticated stats program. It's really hard to have a 2-paragraph about, okay, do this, then do that, then do this. It's so much easier just to show students, this is how I want you to calculate a logistic regression. Just show them, here, do this, here's the sample data set. Students can go back through and watch it again and again. It's really a powerful tool. Here's a professor using it to discuss a writing lab. And I think that they're...
As a young scholar, your goal is to create something new, an original argument that answers a question and, in so doing, furthers the existing scholarly conversation about your topic. This last point is...
So what they've done is create a screencast on how to write a research paper, and they put together 5 parts. Because you can imagine as an instructor, if you're teaching a course and you have some sort of logistical lectures that you have to kind of muddle through every semester to get the students to know how to do this one particular assignment, want to just capture those, record them, then you can just assign them year after year. Oh, by the way, you need to make sure your skills are up to date for doing a research paper. You need to go watch these lectures before you turn your paper. You give them a little quiz just in the lectures. So should we try the other input or just call it?
Keep going.
Okay.
I'm not sure what has transpired because I noticed the whole connections died. So.
Dead. Okay. And this is a faculty member who is using it more in terms of traditional. Someone mentioned narration over PowerPoint slides. So you can either record your entire desktop, or you can record just a menu tab or a windowed application. So this person has recorded
302 modern literature, which covers
now this is my max volume.
1945. The teaching team
So
will include
cautionary tale. Audio is important in a screencast, and this one kind of fails. I give it failing marks for audio. It's kind of mumbling, it's kind of quiet. But just be mindful. Students could actually probably still listen and still get your information, but it's nice to have a bright, clear, buzz-free audio. And this one is 5 minutes long. That's at the upper limit, I think, for most screencasts. If you're going beyond that, kind of be purposeful. Like, why does it need to be this long? Can I do 2 screencasts? It's smaller. It's called chunking. You kind of compressing pieces down to more usable, more memorable pieces. Maybe a part 1 and a part 2. But really, screencasts are optimal if they're small pieces that students can easily kind of quickly go back and review. Some people, screencast is not necessarily an entire lecture, like an hour lecture over a bunch of PowerPoint slides. If you're thinking about using it that way, maybe a series of smaller screencasts, like 10 6-minute screencasts. It doesn't take much more time to record a smaller one. 10 smaller ones is just one big one. It's about the same amount of time. So that's all on the instructor's side. One of the more interesting uses of both of these activities today, and particularly screencast, but I would say just as much for podcasts, is if you sort of flip it around or ask your students to demonstrate their understanding by recording their activities or narrating over web-based or internet-based content or a document. So this is an example from Atmospheric Sciences 101, where a student is going to create their own screencast and submit it to the forums where other students can see it. And this is one of their midterm or quarterly assignments to demonstrate their understanding of a bunch of content. So it's like a presentation, right? It's basically a student presentation.
Doing our Unit 15 response. Now,
This audio is a little muddy.
on
but
the screen
not bad.
you can see that is one freaking sweet earth, if I use this. Got the temperature.
He's going to talk about some graphs and charts. He can move through
started
different
off
tabs. He helps open his browsers.
decently warm for
So
this
he's
time of year.
basically giving a presentation just like you would in the classroom. He's narrating over a bunch of different multimedia pieces of content. You could even use some video content in there. And package that up, record it, save it off to YouTube, and then share that link out to the rest of his class, or at least with an instructor. And then you could provide your assessment evaluation. So I think that, yes, you can use screencast to save yourself a lot of time, maybe to increase your instructor presence, maybe to make your classroom just a little bit more engaging, but kind of bump it to the next level, if you will, if it makes sense for your students to be demonstrating their understanding, you're recording their presence. I just got one more quick, this is a screencast that one of my colleagues put together, showing how to use Sente. It's an application you use to do, it's an Apple only application for doing bibliography research.
In-app browser, and then we're going to go get logged in as we would with the normal browser into the academic
He's
search.
going to show a slide, and then he's going to show you how to do it.
Go up to the window menu, and I'm going to pull down a new browser tab. And at the very bottom, there's a blank browser tab. At the University of Alaska.
Okay, so you can dynamically within some screencasting software, you can zoom, you can highlight, you can blur everything else other than what you want the students to focus on. Just kind of be purposeful. You think, well, for this one, the syllabus doesn't matter. Now I really want the students only to focus in on this one area. So you could zoom to it, you could blur everything else. You can have a highlighted pointer. You can play with a lot of levels of sort of sophistication depending upon your purposes. Again, if you're going to do 40 screencasts, you might want to up your game a little bit right out of the gate. If you're going to do just 2, just play and have a good time. It's not that big a deal. So screencasting software, OIT has some software available. And if you don't know, if you just Google OIT, UAF software, you can find your way to this page. And then depending upon which platform you have, you can find your way in. If I wanted to have a Mac platform, I would go into download software. Yes, here it is. This takes me to the web page. This is Mac software, and here is one software called Camtasia. That's one piece of software. I'm not a huge advocate of Camtasia, but again, up to you. You can read some reviews or come down and talk. Different designers like different pieces of software. I'm going to show you a free piece here in just a second. That's super fun and super easy to play with and costs nothing. So, and it does great quality screencasts. So if you wanted Camtasia, you could click here and download it here. I think this is a little bit of an older version of Camtasia.
The PC version is more up to date than the Mac version.
Okay,
so.
yeah, but not to worry. There's lots of different pieces of screencasting software out there. They're all slightly different. And let me show you one now. If you use the browser called Chrome, Google Chrome, there's Safari, Internet Explorer, which we don't really ever want anyone to use, except for certain people in certain places. And there's Chrome. So there's an extension for Chrome. Anybody familiar with extensions? A couple nods, a few nods. Just briefly, if you want to add an extension, make this a little bigger. Okay, guess I can't make that bigger. Under settings in Chrome, there's this menu object over here called extensions. And if you scroll down, I've already added this extension called Screencastify. It's free. The basic version is free. And I can show you how that works. When you've installed it, it creates a little film clip icon. You can see in the top, very top right-hand corner up there, right up there, the very top right-hand corner. If you click on that, it's going to give you some options. And actually, there's a pretty neat little video, but that's okay. It gives you 3 options right out of the gate. You can record the tab which you're in. You can record the desktop, the entire desktop, or from the webcam, just the camera. You can choose. You can also record a tab with the camera or the desktop with the camera, little subset video. So that's a really nice way if you want to do, say, your syllabus, and you want to have the students see your syllabus and see you talking about your syllabus while you're highlighting various elements of your syllabus. It's a pretty neat, pretty fancy, and very simple to do. So I'm just going to show you briefly. I mentioned to you that UAF has some software you can download, and I'm just going to create a little tiny screencast right now about how you might do that. Just to show you how easy it can be. So I've installed Screencastify. It was fairly quick, painless. And one thing about Screencastify is you can link it to your UA Drive account, your UA Google Drive account, and or your UA YouTube account. Everybody who has Google Apps for Educators, as being an educator at UAF, you have a YouTube account and you have a Google Drive account. So that means you're not limited to storing your videos on your laptop or your computer. A lot of the other screencast software providers used to more strongly steer you to storing it on their online servers, which was kind of a pain and a little bit awkward. I really like Screencastify because you can literally screencast directly to YouTube, grab the URL, the embed code, and put it right in your course, just straight to YouTube, no fuss, no muss. It's very easy. Some of the other ones are going that way too now. That's clearly the superior model. So all you do is say yes, and we have a few different choices. We can record the microphone audio, which is what's on now. You can listen to me talking. We could also record the tab audio. Say I was recording over a movie. I could record the audio from that tab, and it would have my voice talking over a movie, and you could modulate the two. And then the video, I can choose to embed the webcam or not. That's this little option up here. And you can choose the resolution and the camera. If I had multiple cameras, I could choose between them. And it'll show me a little preview window. I'm going to just, for simplicity's sake, just record this tab rather than my whole desktop. My desktop's usually messy, so I don't want them to see all my icons and all that other stuff going on. And I'm going to embed the webcam, and I'm just going to click Start Recording. And it's recording now. Now it's recording. You can see it's got this little sample window. It shows that's exactly what's recording. It's actually capturing my voice. And there's a little picture of what it's going to look like when it's done. That's me in there. So if I wanted to show students, okay, so this is our screencast on how to download software from the OIT Support Center. So I could click here to get to the software download webpage, which I've already logged into. Otherwise, it would show me, it would make me log in. And then I could choose any of these software platforms, but I'm interested in screencasting software, so I would click on Camtasia, and then I would click here on Download Application or Installer. Now, since I want to stop the video, I would just click on that little film strip again and say Stop. Now it's recording. You can see it's got this little sample window. It shows that's exactly what's recording. It's actually capturing my voice. So that's all there is to it. We made a screencast of me fumbling my way through the OIT software.
How do you do the little highlighters? Or...
Right. So different software has different ways to have fancy little cursors. I don't recall, let me see here. This has a tool menu. So some of the tools, for instance, now it's recording. I'm going to turn off my volume because I can't stand to hear myself. So Screencastify has these little edit scissors, so I can make little edits in Screencastify. But it says down here, this feature requires a paid version of Screencastify. But for free, I can load it up to YouTube, and YouTube has editing features for free. So, some of these things are kind of like, I really, really want the highlighted cursor thing. Okay, well, some of the software packages have slightly different ways of doing that. I haven't found them in Screencastify yet. Let me see. I'll go back. Your recordings. So it said there, my recording is stored in Google Drive. I'm going to answer the question about the highlighted cursors things. I want to talk about storing this. So automatically, because of the way I've set this up, it is storing this video, the actual video file, in my Drive folder on UAF Google Apps, not on my laptop, which is hugely advantageous for me because video files are huge and they take up a lot of space. Also, I could click on this share thing and upload it directly to YouTube via my UA and in which case I'd say, please select. I'd select the Owen Guthrie channel, which is my UA YouTube login. And then I would just click down here on upload. Then it'd be directly on my UA YouTube channel. I grab that embed code from there, stick it right in my course. It literally took me, I could do it in 5 minutes, no problem. And if you want to do this, and you're a little bit like, I think I can do that, but I'm not sure, come see us. Totally get it done. Easy, yes, David.
Just one thing that I found to answer your question is for the ones that are free that don't have a lot of tool options is on the desktop in the mouse settings to make the cursor larger. You can make that arrow larger, and then just be mindful about how fast you're moving it across the screen when you're recording. And then that reduces the need for the highlighting tool, because you've got a really big arrow that you're moving slowly that they can follow it. So that's just one way to stay within the free realm without the tools.
Yeah, there's some options here. Let's see if there's options, notifications, keyboard shortcuts. I've used my time, but I'll figure out an answer to that. Some of the other ones have very nice little animated cursors, or you can have the little bright yellow ring or call out, or just larger, or they automatically zoom in to where you're scrolling. You can do a few different things like that. Okay, so
awesome. Lots of good stuff. Let me try one more time to see if we can.
If not, you can use this.
If not, I'll be. Maybe. Guess not. It's not being a happy.
Is it the computer itself that's?
It looks like it must be the.
Or the cable or something.
Yeah.
You want to use this one?
Don't worry about it. Yeah, go that way if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay.
One other thing I want to talk about, since Owen mentioned it, one of the other tools that was mentioned in the e-learning tab under screencasting was Show Me, or Explain Everything, which are not laptop or desktop apps, they're iPad apps. And one of the really interesting aspects of screencasting is that from an assessment perspective, it makes a great tool. I've used both of those apps with an Ed 329 class I teach, in which the prospective teachers actually use those tools to demonstrate how to do a task. Say you're teaching math addition to, say, 6-year-olds. The Show Me app actually allows you to, on your iPad, to draw and talk at the same time, or manipulate images at the same time. And so what they did as part of an assessment of their understanding and use of technology was to use that tool to create a variety of short, no more, as Owen pointed out, no more than 5 minutes lessons for kids to use as reference tools. So if you're having trouble with addition, you could go back and watch as the teachers, did an example of how to do it. They could replay it lots and lots of times. They can share them. You can get more complicated. The other tool I think I saw on there was Explain Everything, which allows you to do a greater variety of things. But the Show Me tool has actually can be used by young kids. So if you're doing things with students, it's a great assessment tool to demonstrate.
I'll just throw in there. You're still moving through different video series, but I'll just throw in there that we talked about screencasting. We're going to talk about podcasting. There's another sort of mode of expression called pen casting that's in the same family. But if you really want to draw while you're discussing, for instance, it's really appropriate for math, right? You can actually do math problems. Students can watch you do the math problem very easily. And there's other types of content that's best described via pencast. If you want to take notes, or you want to highlight or circle on the screen, that kind of thing, pencasting is a good way to go. And that's another mode that you can use via mobile, tablet, laptop, whatever. And we can help with that. We have some pencasting setups that we can help them. find it. It's got some-
Oh, there we go. Hope if I can type here. Oh,
It's gonna log in as me.
it's gonna load as you.
You can log out as me, it's fine.
Some of it.
So what do you guys think? Any potential for screencasting in your courses?
I guess I was thinking more in terms of, you were saying the length. So both like longer lectures, but also I guess there's no interactive component to screencast then.
Not screencastify? No, I mean,
No.
you're just,
Yeah,
you're basically delivering. You're basically watching a video.
yeah.
Yeah, it's as interactive as, that's why you can make them shorter and you can intersperse questions.
Mhm.
You can up the interactivity there. Yeah.
There are tools that allow you to do that,
Okay.
to add a level of interactivity, but that's a whole nother thing in which you take your finished product and then you go back and add the interactivity piece in.
So
But
is technical time limit on the screencast? You said 5-10 minutes.
It's more about student attention span.
Yeah, I understand, but could you do like for an entire lecture?
Good. You could. Technically,
people do.
Yeah.
You know, the question is, you know, and this applies to podcasting as well. When you create something like that, what's your end goal? You know, if your end goal is for them to just watch it to get some background knowledge, you know, maybe the time limit isn't a factor. On the other hand, if it's something where you're looking for them to gain some very specific information out of, we all function better in short chunks, you know. So and you could certainly say, okay, I'm going to build this as 10 different 5-minute chapters. Admittedly, it takes a little bit more effort on your part. The advantage is, though, that students then can ideally locate exactly what they need when they need it. So if they're reviewing something, they go, oh yeah, that was in chapter 3, no problem, I'll go watch that 8-minute video in which that's discussed. The advantage to them is, too, a lot of times students will take screencasts or podcasts and they'll take them with them. So it might be on their phone. In that case, it's a lot easier for them to download a 5-minute thing than to download a 40-minute thing onto that device. I mean, there's a high usage of mobile devices today, and students really like that because, hey, they could be sitting in an airport, they could be sitting in a coffee shop, and oh yeah, I want to review that specific piece. So there are a lot of advantages to short, you know. And again, not to say that long is bad, but you really have to think about why you want them and how willing you would be at the same token to sit down, you know, and watch 40 minutes of whatever the case, you know, especially if it's not a fiction movie or something on that order. So
Yeah, I agree, but the question I think is about technology part. Usually we have to pay for, like for Screencasting, for example, 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes is free. And after 5 minutes, even 6 is already, you have to buy a version.
Right. So
So
most of the
there
products work that way. So even Screencastify is 10 minutes. Up to 10 minutes is free. Over 10 minutes it costs. Yeah. But you can make a lot of 10-minute videos, and you've made a lot of videos.
But 5 minutes is too short. Like we had to buy Screencasting licenses.
Yeah, 5 minutes can be a little bit constraining. There's a question back there, yeah.
And I teach large auditorium courses where students do some video-based assignments. And so part of it also is looking at students' work in class and discussing it, and also having assignments based on video-based assignments. So, for some years I've tried to find a good way for just managing the volume of work, video-based work in a class of 100-some students.
Right.
The advice I got a while back from e-learning on just how to do it is through a shared Google Drive folder to which students upload their videos.
Sure.
They would have to be in the MP4 format, and it works smoothly for maybe 2/3 of the class, and then depending on what kind of device the students use, and just how tech savvy they are in the first place. Some struggle with format, some struggle with Google Drive, and so on. And playing them directly from the folder is also sometimes problematic. So I'm just wondering whether at this stage you would recommend a different strategy. Is it more manageable to do it as just a big list of YouTube links from individual students, or what we're doing? Is it still the best way to go? Just
So you have 100 students who are each creating a video product and sharing it with their peers. Yeah, there's a few different ways you could approach that. That's one approach that's a pretty sound approach. That's, I certainly wouldn't think that that's antiquated or ridiculous by any stretch. That's a pretty good approach. To have everybody share it to a shared drive folder, you have to kind of specify the format because not everybody can see every format, and then everybody could easily watch it there. The other option that comes to my mind is the YouTube format, because so many different devices, iPhones, Androids, Windows phones, can easily get to YouTube. It's a really, has a high penetration as a platform. Whereas Drive, for some, can be a little, but again, all students should have access to Drive and should be able to get in there. But I understand what you're saying, that some students struggle at that threshold. I'm not sure the struggle would be that much easier if you were directing to go to YouTube instead. You're just going to have some segment of your student population that has a hard time with some of those things. One strategy might be to create a screencast of yourself showing them exactly step-by-step how to do it. That might reduce your barrier. You're always going to have a couple students who just need to come see you, but especially with that big of a cohort.
But you still recommend that MP4 would be the preferred format?
And MP4 is the standard for it.
Yeah.
Despite what everybody else will tell you, if it's an MP4, they can play it on virtually anything.
Yeah.
The other place that you might consider is iTunes U. There are lots of, that's cross-platform as well. And we have unlimited storage on iTunes U, so you could create a collection of all those things and send students there as well. So it works both ways. Okay. Podcasting. Podcasting obviously has been around a little bit longer than screencasting. There's always a lot of historical perspectives, but podcasting for some folks came from the word, especially once the iPod sort of became prevalent, the word, pod and broadcast, and some folks called it portable on-demand broadcasting. Lots of different associations, and it's really an outgrowth of radio. I mean, when you think about it, it's just portable, totally portable. And as you can see there, the first time the term appeared was in 2004. So, in terms of internet life, it's actually been around a long time. The nice thing about a podcast is really that's the only device you need right there is a really good quality microphone. I would echo Owen's comment. If you're going to do a lot of it, that is the way to go. On the other hand, with a decent quality headset, you can actually do an amazing amount of really quality work. It does take a little bit of tweaking as to what you want to do with a podcast, because it's strictly audio. Kind of two perspectives. When you think of an audio podcast, you could think of it as I'm just passing information on to you, but you can also think of a podcast in the sense of an old style radio broadcast. You can add background music, you can put a music bed in, you can put sound effects in. All those things can make for actually a very exciting and interesting presentation. And again, the time frame, you can do them live. You can watch live podcasts or listen to live podcasts. You can create 30-second ones to, an hour-long podcast. There are folks who do that professionally. That's what they do. Really, there's lots of software to do it as well. I'll briefly mention two of them. One is if you have a Mac, GarageBand. It's right there. It's built in. It's a fantastic tool to create a podcast in. Doesn't get any easier. We offer a class on that. The other tool is a cross-platform tool called Audacity, Audacity, and that's free, totally cross-platform. Does a fantastic job. And again, really the only piece of equipment you need is a microphone and really a quiet place to do it. I would echo Owen's comments again. If you're going to make a podcast, don't do it off the cuff. You really want to script it out. I do podcasting with my Ed 329 class. They have an interesting experience because, and Owen mentioned this a little bit, you're not always comfortable hearing your voice, and you have no concept of how loud you speak or how soft you speak, or the inflections that you use, or how many times you say or or as you do that. So it's a really good idea to play with a podcasting tool, whatever it may be, ahead of time, just to get a sense of, do I need to speak this close to the microphone in my Mac, or do I need to step back a little bit because that maybe I talk loud, maybe I talk softer than I think when I'm talking to a person versus an unknown audience. But you can present any kind of information in a podcast. It might be an interview, for instance. And you might have an assignment and you say, you need to go out and interview somebody who's in field X, whatever the case may be. I saw this done in an EMT class where they were sent out and had to interview active EMTs to find out exactly what did they do in their job. What were the kinds of issues they had? What were the kinds of training they felt they needed? That came back, and all those were shared. The students ended up gathering and garnering a much better understanding of what the whole issue of being an EMT was all about. And it gave the students the opportunity to develop questioning styles. How do we ask these questions? How do we respond to these questions? When the EMT says this, do I just kind of go, oh, thanks? Or, do I further the conversation? So, one of those things, as I've indicated here, and I'll make sure this is posted, podcasting doesn't cost much. You probably have the stuff already available, but as Owen pointed out, it is available and can be loaned out as well. Nice thing about a podcast is you're always in control of what there and for how long you do it. And you could do a whole host of these. I've seen lessons taught, if we go back to the flipped classroom approach, where the instructor says, here's the bite-sized pieces. Danny, you were talking about better ways to interact and give instructions to the students who may get lost in all the reading. What a great way to do it. Here's a little audio clip. If you miss that instruction on how you do task A, go back and listen to it. And for a lot of kids, that's really important because they go back and not only look at it on screen, but they could click it and listen to it at the same time. And so you're picking up lots of possibilities. It's convenient, automatic, and inexpensive way to reach audiences. Again, they can be stored all kinds of places. You can embed them on a web page. You can put them in your Google folder. In fact, you can actually make YouTube videos that are audio only. So those options are all out there. The nice thing about podcasts is you can pare them down. Just like a screencast, you can choose the resolution and all kinds. Instead of the resolution of a picture, you're talking about the resolution of the sound itself. So if you're really looking to make it small, instead of doing a stereo podcast, do a mono podcast. Instead of doing a podcast at 44 kilohertz, do it at 22 kilohertz. There are lots of ways to make them very, very small.
I use recorded audio over slides, just a single slide as discussion prompts in my online course. I'll have just a slide. It's a YouTube video. It's embedded in the course. Students press play and they hear me talking over the slide and asking the question, talking a little bit. Just maybe it's like a 2-minute. But I think that's a little bit better than ideal. Maybe it would be a video of me, but that's also distracting in itself. So it's just my voice with a single slide, and the slide is a visual prompt, and then an audio prompt, and then it goes right into, please respond below. So that's
And
essentially.
there's actually a way to do that in GarageBand. It's called an enhanced podcast, in which you get a static picture that you can attach to a particular portion of text. Again, nice thing about GarageBand, doesn't cost you a penny. On the laptop or the desktop side, it does cost if you're looking to put it on a mobile device of some kind. The other thing about is the human voice adds a tremendous level of personalization to a topic. As easy it is as to pick up a book or read something online, when I listen to an audiobook, there's a big difference in how I perceive that information. So the human voice has a big piece of that. I listed a couple of things that you can do. Flip a class. You could have students do introductions. Create just a brief, especially if you got distance students. Doesn't take as nearly the amount of bandwidth to do an audio podcast as compared to a video. If you're looking, especially distance students at a remote site, and those same students, because they're at a remote site, dealing with smaller audio files makes it easier for them to send that in over their connection. So personalization, tutorials, lectures, student response. Like I said, I love to use it as a tool for assessment. Get them to tell me what's going on, rather than having them manipulated in some fashion on a test of some kind. I would much rather, same thing with the screencast, I'd much rather see them, like with Show Me or Explain Everything, actually do that. Show me what's going on. Tell me how to do that. Let's see if this, oops. Let's see if this pulls up. So one of the things I have my students do, let's see if
I just hit the microphone on the keyboard at the back of the.
where am I at here?
Yeah. This one. That should work.
Hi, and welcome to the podcast, Did You Know? My name is Nicole Smith, and I'll be your host for this afternoon show. Today we'll be talking about the topic of social media addiction. Did you know that users between the ages of 15 to 19 spend at least 3 hours a day on average on social media?
So I had them generate a SoundCloud account. They store their sound bites in SoundCloud. Doesn't cost them anything, but it makes it available. And my instructions to them were pretty minimal. I said, here are 2 tools that you can do this with. If you want to explore some other tools, you can. I spent time in class being available to answer questions. They picked a topic, and they tried to limit themselves to 5 minutes or less. What they discovered, quite interestingly, was the value of practicing it many, many times before they're recording it, and the value of being concise. Many of their attempts exceeded 5 minutes. And, when they looked at it, they said, well, gosh, I just kind of got talking. It's right. So how closely did you follow the script that you had? I mean, it's just something to consider with that. Let's see, where did that go? There's a whole list of things here, and we talked about the UAF e-learning resources. Like I said, I'll post this, but questions on podcasting?
Again, I would second what Gary said about the utility of podcasts is if you do have some narrative portions of your course where your content is you coming out of your head, you can give that to them in written form. Great. You can also give them to them if you read it and just put it on there as a audio file. Students can take that with them. They go for a walk. They go, they're out go for a ski. They're biking, whatever. They listen on the bus. They can listen to it. And I know, at least in Justice, I know a couple of the faculty who decided to record audio versions of all of their lecture content, their written lecture content, and the students love it. It's just convenient.
Right. And if you take that kind of approach, you can take that 40-minute lecture, for instance, and you can go back later and edit it into sections. You don't have to do it in, 5, 8-minute chunks. You can just sit down, okay, here's the lecture, and let me go back, and Audacity and GarageBand allow you to do that. And you can just put in chapter markers if you want. You could break it out as, 5 different podcasts. Lots of opportunities to do it. It's a very straightforward but extremely personalizing tool.
So how do you add a podcast? Like say you're just wanting to explain some information that you have like on the PowerPoint site. How do you just, what makes more sense to do that with, screencasting or podcast?
Well, your biggest question is, do you want a visual? I think that's where I was, Gary. You may have, I think.
Yeah, and actually PowerPoint will allow you to add an audio track too. So, right. There's 3 different ways you could do it.
The downside of using PowerPoint, although I think from PowerPoint now you can go to YouTube.
You can export. So.
Yeah, you can export. Yeah, so it's just kind of finding what you want to do, your purpose of what you're trying to explain, and then just finding the fastest and easiest route to get that information to students.
Right, and with something like PowerPoint, you can export it as an MP4 movie as a final product. And then you could go through and say, I just want to isolate this one and this one. And again, you could break them out as individual pieces at that point.
And then save those up to YouTube. Right. Once you have the MP4, then you can save it to a hosting platform, YouTube or Drive, and then share it in your course shell, Blackboard or WordPress or wherever you're sharing it. Then students can just click and watch. And that's all stuff we can help with.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you decide what you want to do, that's the first big step. Oh, I would like to have a video in my course that does this. Figure out exactly what you want to express and how you want to express it, and then just say, this is what I want.
And probably the best thing to keep in mind when you talk about screencasting and podcasting is, does it fit with what I want to do? The biggest mistake people make is thinking, oh, that's great, I need to do that, when maybe the material you're working with just doesn't lend itself to do that. Mm-hmm. So look for the natural places where it would make sense to do it. Instead of reading about a conversation, maybe have 3 students dramatize that conversation. If you're talking about diseases, I could see a scenario in which maybe somebody is representing, an official of the CDC, and somebody is also representing a state official, with public health, and somebody else is representing a local doctor. And they script out a conversation of how that might go. Perfect idea, does it really need the video portion? Probably not, but audio-wise, what a great way to experience, and for those students involved in that process to experience what that's like. Or, another possibility might be a debate, in which you have folks debating about a topic. You don't necessarily need the video piece, but the audio piece would be very instructive.
But how do you make that interactive or between the, maybe I'm missing?
Well, if you were going to make it interactive, what I would do is I'd take the situation like this. Here's my mic, whatever it may be, and have the 3 people sitting there and carrying on what that conversation is.
Okay. So you just have your students get together.
Right.
It's a little bit more challenging in online.
It is, but you could. It could be possible to do it, I think, probably with a Google Hangout in some form or another. If they set up their own Google Hangout and got it recorded, you'd get that piece. So they could pull it off.
So could you, a lot of the online classes that I teach are stacked, so there's a face-to-face and online. So could I use that to record lectures and then post them as podcasts?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm just
want to think about, okay, in your lectures in the classroom, how big a component of the visuals? Because the students who are just listening to that, they're not going to get those. So, are you disadvantaging something? So you just kind of want to think through that, The other option is to record the lectures with the visuals for everyone outside of class. And so then you're kind of flipping it more like, okay, this lecture, I'm just going to flip this lecture this semester. So have an hour lecture with your PowerPoint slides and assign that to everyone before they either come to class or just, do an activity or do the activity online. Yeah.
Great. Other questions?
Thank you, folks.
Next time, February 18th, I believe, we'll have Denise Thorson and her name escapes me. Anyway, they'll be talking about flipped classrooms. So if you've ever wondered what a flipped classroom is like, we'll have her name escapes me. The two of them here to talk about just how they do their flipped classrooms, and they've been doing it for a while. So
Denise is great.
Should be fun.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. If you didn't have a chance to sign in, please sign
Ask
in.
one last question.
Yeah.
So this is actually goes to the flipping, I guess, but
Sure.
then if people are doing that, so you've been preserving your class time